believe this is a very exciting time in the maritime industry. I think right now it is very exciting. I think everybody loves the concept of digitalization. Everybody talks about it. You hear about it everywhere. I think we just need to embrace it. We need to adopt it. I love this phrase that Gandhi said. He said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Stop talking about it. You need to use it. You need to be actively working on it. It's not just a project. It is a journey. So we need to be part of that journey. And I think that's very important.
That's the voice of Lourdes Evans, today's guest on the podcast. You will hear more about her background with Kongsberg Digital, as well as her role as co-president of the Connecticut chapter of WISTA. I hope you enjoy this podcast as we cover a wide range of topics, including remote training, the impact of COVID on her business, and one of the most important goals of WISTA, that is mentoring. Before we get started, I'm going to go against marketing norms and give you not one, but two call to actions. I'm such a rule breaker. I know, what are we going to do? First, please follow. For those that are unsure, that's the plus button on top of the podcast. This will allow you to be notified when new episodes are dropped. Second, if you like what you hear, add a 5-star review and a few nice words. It's always appreciated. Once again, thanks for listening. Now on to the podcast. Welcome, everyone, and you're listening to The Last Dinosaur. And I'm your host, Chris Aversano. On today's podcast, we have Lourdes Evans. Lourdes is Digital Service Senior Manager, Maritime Simulation at Kongsberg Digital. Based in Connecticut, Lourdes brings over 20 years experience in maritime and software solutions. Today, she leads the digital services sales team promoting the KSIM Connect digital platform and the cloud-based simulation solutions that improve maritime training as seafarers' competencies and enhance safety and efficiency in operations at sea. Lourdes is also a CMA member and the co-president of the WISTA Connecticut chapter. Lourdes holds a bachelor's degree in air transportation management from the University of New Haven and an MBA from UConn, University of Connecticut. Kongsberg Digital is a provider of next-generation software and digital solutions to customers within the maritime, oil and gas, and renewables and utilities industries. Lourdes, welcome to the podcast, and thanks for coming on.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for the invitation and for the opportunity to share my journey in the maritime industry and to share how Kongsberg Digital is leading the digital transformation for a better tomorrow. Let's put it that way, for a safer and more efficient operations at sea. I have been following your podcast, and I really enjoy listening to your interviews and learning about your guests and their backgrounds and the different point of views. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. So now everybody gets to learn about you, and we hope to spend this next half an hour or so talking about it. And I'm excited for you to come on. And the idea hit me at a WISTA. We'll get into WISTA a little bit later, but certainly at a WISTA breakfast, I said, I got to have Lourdes on. She's fantastic, has a lot of experience and background, and could talk a little bit about, some really cool things she's doing at Kongsberg. So talk about that. What are you focusing on these days, and kind of what's kind of Kongsberg doing kind of here in Connecticut and the US and beyond?
Yes, thank you so much. Well, my background is not really maritime. I'm originally from Barcelona, Spain. So I came to Connecticut about 30 years ago. My background is actually in aviation, all things, but I graduated with an air transportation management degree. And then I joined a company called Coastal Oceanographics. It was a very small company that developed software for the maritime industry. And I joined them because they own a plane, and I was really excited about being able to fly their plane. But anyhow, 23 years, I worked with them developing hydrographic and dredging software for companies like groups like NOAA and the Corps of Engineers to create nautical charts. So that's how I started. And then I joined Kongsberg in 2019, and then COVID hit. So it has been a very exciting time at Kongsberg Digital and in maritime in general. So that's very, very exciting.
A lot of your focus is on the simulation. Talk about that, because that is such a huge part. I mean, I remember being a cadet back at one of the Maritime at SUNY Maritime back a million years ago, when kind of simulations started, in the late 80s, early 90s. I graduated in 94, and then certainly built up to there. Talk a little bit about what you're doing there.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Kongsberg, as you said, has been around for a while. So we are 200 years old. And, you can say that we are a dinosaur as well. But but anyhow, and back in 2016, we started Kongsberg Digital. So that's the entity that I actually work for. And as you mentioned, I focus on our cloud-based simulation. So Kongsberg has been a strong contributor to education and training of seafarers for 40 years already. So our simulators can be found in many classrooms around the world, and it's an important tool for education. So what happened is in 2019, COVID hit, or 2020, we launched what was called our Case and Connect digital platform, where we deliver our cloud-based services and making simulation available outside the physical classroom to anyone, anytime, anywhere. So now you have this technology that we had developed for 40 years, and it's available in the cloud for anybody to use it. So it helps with training, and it helps have the students access anytime, anywhere.
Timing of that would be really perfect, because as people couldn't go to training centers, or they're, maybe they couldn't get to them if they were, let's say, overseas, and I have to go, I'm a sailor and I live in, Eastern Europe, and I got to go to a training center in Western Europe. You weren't traveling, for a good time. And how do I keep my STCW certificate or other certificates up to date? Here's a good way of industry trying to keep ahead of that, certainly.
Exactly. And not only that, it's like, COVID made you realize how important family and life and just life in general is. So, and having the possibility of completing your training from your home, basically, rather than having to travel to, after being on a ship for a long period of time, you get off the ship and then you have to go to a training center, which is still important. But I think some of the training can be done from home. Your work-life balance, definitely, there is a better work-life balance, I believe, with this.
No, I think in all, obviously we're talking about Kongsberg here, but then all that, whether it's this type of training or other types of trainings, if you could do it at home, and hopefully you have the connectivity to kind of meet those requirements that you need, it certainly does do that. I look back on my career, although very brief at sea, and a couple of times I had to do training. It was great. I was single. I didn't have to be anywhere. So like going someplace cool, I remember going to DC, and as a side story, I actually ran into Matthew McConaughey,
Really?
and Tom Skerritt. I was taking a GMDSS class, so training, which I could probably take now online. I could probably pay for it. I was in a bar in Washington, D.C., and I'm walking into the bathroom, and I see these two guys coming out. I'm like, one guy I recognize, Tom Skerritt, because he was in a ton of movies. He was in the original Top Gun. He was Mavericks. He was Viper, I think. He was the senior guy. I'm like, hey, I know you. And he looked at me. He goes, yep, I'm that guy. And then I see this other guy, good looking, tall guy. He comes out, and it was Matthew McConaughey. And I was like, wow. And they were filming the movie Contact. It was around 1996 or 1997. The point is I didn't mind doing that as a young, young single guy. But as a family, now being a dad and married or spouse or whatever, even, just wanting to be I want to be in my home space, and forget about a second of restrictions to travel and the aggravation that we now face with that. But now this comes down to a seafarer's mental health issue, right? That if you can make seafaring a more palatable place, that, wait a minute, I just spent 6 months at sea and now I got to spend 2 weeks overseas. Yeah, it's nice, but I'd rather spend that with my family. It certainly makes that a little bit easier to, a little bit easier pill to swallow, certainly. And it sounds like technology like that's something that you guys are trying to deliver in the industry as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, we see, the technology improving also on board ships. So we do see that training can be actually, and it is already, some of the training is done on board ships, but we definitely want to be in that simulation on board ships for the seafarers to be able to complete some of those trainings on board ships with simulation. And at the same time, it's more fun. It's more, we want to bring that gamification, feeling to the training to make it more interesting, especially for the new generation, that they're used to, playing video games and
right. And we're going to talk about like kind of making this an interesting place, a better place to work when we talk a little bit about WISTA later on. But certainly like having that and having the seafarers, and then you bring up we're talking about another kind of issue without saying the word, and that is, the connectivity on the ships, right?
Mhm.
As that improves, you allow for more robust training to take place on the ships, right? Because you have more connections, you have faster connections, you don't have to worry about, sending, like when I was there, a fax. I mean, there was no computers that were linked anywhere. It was a fax. So it sounds like that's really a great improvement. Brings me to kind of my next question. Since you've kind of gotten into the shipping industry, what changes have you seen in that? Like where have you really seen kind of the mindset and the shift?
Well, yes, that's a good question. So I've worked in the maritime industry for over 25 years. So yes, I started when I was very, very young. I have to say that. Uh,
We all were much younger. You're much younger than I am. So
so and I was involved in digitalization of the electronic charts at that time. So that's when we started doing ECTAs and digital charts. And of course, when you're in the middle of it, you don't realize it's something exciting and new. It's like, looking back, it's like, whoa, that's when we started doing some digitalization. So, but anyhow, looking back, a lot has changed, of course, since I started. And if somebody had told me that we could have an autonomous container ship carrying cargo from one port to another, or the capability of training on a ship simulator on the cloud, I would have told them, stop watching Star Trek. That's not possible, right? Or using your iPhone, right?
right, right.
So yeah, so I think our goal, in the industry, I think in general, and our goal as Kongsberg Digital is to continuously adapting and developing new products and new technology to meet the current and future requirements, and to make sure that we work closely with our customers to make sure we understand their requirements and their needs and how we can make their lives easier. It really is, we basically, for a better tomorrow. We want to make sure make everybody's life easier in the future. So
As you're talking here, I'm thinking about, like, even digitization. And I remember, I mean, when I was sailing, I was one of the few people that had a personal computer, that I brought a laptop. And I actually ended up making a ton of overtime because the captain didn't want to bother writing reports. He said, "Well, you have your laptop on, just go do it." And I made overtime sitting in the shorts and a t-shirt, listening to music, making money on my laptop, paid for itself in less than a trip. But I think, I think that one of the things that we keep on, a little bit of a theme, is sometimes we get a little bit of resistance. And certainly that has to be something that you've faced over your 20 plus 25 years in the maritime digital space. Has that changed really? I mean, 25 years ago, selling digital services versus selling it today, has that resistance changed, or now is the resistance kind of something different when you walk into an office?
I believe this is a very exciting time in the maritime industry. I think right now it is very exciting. I think everybody loves the concept of digitalization. Everybody talks about it. You hear about it everywhere. I think we just need to embrace it. We need to adopt it. I love this phrase that Gandhi said. He said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." Stop talking about it. You need to use it. You need to be actively working on it. It's not just a project. It is a journey. So we need to be part of that journey. And I think that's very important.
I think so, but how are you seeing people that say, "Yeah, this is not for me"? Because I think for what you guys are trying to do in general, and in the niche that you're trying to do, like you said, it comes back to making people's lives easier. So you're not really kind of changing a lot of workflow. Let's say on the day to day, it seems to be more of the training and the other stuff. Are you still seeing people that are skeptical about what you're bringing to the table, or now it's just an acceptance of what you're doing? What do you see when you speak to your clients?
Oh, we have both. We have customers that believe that training has to be done in person. It has to be done in the classroom with physical simulators. And then we have the champions that believe this is the greatest thing and this is the future. So there is, of course, the resistance, and change is difficult for anybody. It's just, I think, training and education and teaching people the value of a solution. We don't believe in one thing or another for training. I think we believe in a blended solution. There is the right tool for different type of training. So we believe, yeah,
And I think that gets down to listening to your clients, right? And
exactly.
and then listening to your clients on one level, kind of like at the 10,000 foot level, but then stepping it up like to the industry level. is this aligned with industry? Forget about like the company strategy, because I do a lot of that in my product. Okay, we got to give this to the client here. This makes sense. Is this the way the industry is going? Like, is the industry really going this way? Based on their feedback, and I think that that's always at the heart of our industry are the seafarers, and always at the heart of that is the safety of the seafarers. So certainly, I do imagine you do get some challenges to, well, we have a training department, and this is what we've always done, and this is how we've done it. And we could say that we've reduced our lost time, incidents by 5% by doing it this way. And now you want to change that. Like, that all gets played into it. So I imagine that that's part of the challenges that you see when you go in and talk to people.
Yeah, but again, we don't see this replacing the existing way of doing training. I think it will enhance it, and it's an additional tool for the training centers. Now you have the capability of, besides having your students come to the classroom and use the simulators, they can practice outside the classroom. They can do more familiarization training before they come to the training in the actual training center. So it really complements what you're doing now. So it's no replacing it. But I think, of course, they need to see the value, and they need to do their cost, their cost benefit analysis. But I think we don't know what the future is going to bring. I
think that kind of being prepared for the change and kind of being flexible. And I think that that's what it comes down to, because I from my point of view is, like you said in the beginning or one earlier point, we don't know what's going to happen. Right. I mean, it just, we can end up kind of going a different way, and being unanticipated, or you have COVID. And all of a sudden it's like, well, a solution that you guys were talking about, or the industry was talking about 2 years ago, wasn't very palatable. Now it's like the hottest thing in the world, because we get over our biases that we had before. Right. It's very interesting, because there's a lot of that. I mean, I think everybody here can relate to the fact that not 3 years ago now, maybe 3 years ago today, but by the time you guys listen to this, maybe 3 years ago, before 3 years ago, having the amount of Zoom calls was nuts. Like, maybe you had 1 or 2 Zoom calls a day with overseas clients. Otherwise, that was it. Now, sales and working remotely has always been different, but if you were an office person, you had like 1 or 2 a day. And now it's a part of the lifestyle. So I think it's very interesting to look at that. The other part that I want to talk about is your role in a great organization. And I will say I am a WISTA MISTA. So very proud card carrying, although that's about to expire. I got to make sure I pay that. A flag waving WISTA member. Lourdes, you are the co-president of the Connecticut chapter, of which I am part of. Talk to me a little bit about what WISTA's doing and kind of what you're up to today with that, because I think that's it's a really great organization.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for being a member. We love having WISTA Mistas, even though this is supposed to be a women's organization. It's not. We are welcome anybody that wants to become a member. So thank you. So as you know, we are celebrating 25 years this year. So it's a big number, and we are very excited. We'll have a big celebration at our AGM conference in Washington, D.C. in May. So I hope we will see you there. And yes, as a matter of fact, we are very involved in digitalization as well in the WISTA organization. We have now a committee, communications committee, and I'm part of it. And we are trying to standardize the processes and the communication steps to make sure we use the digitalization and digital tools to communicate with our members, to be able to share information, to be able to be more efficient in the way we're trying to support our community. So yeah, no, definitely we see that very important. As you mentioned, since COVID, we are hosting a lot of events virtually, also in person. So we see that actually has brought us even closer, being able to use the technology for that. So
yeah, that was, for those that don't know, I was president of the CMA during COVID, and we had a lot of kind of parallels with Lourdes and the team, whether it was kind of regionally here in Connecticut, nationally in the US, and then of course globally, the way you guys have structure on having a lot of digital presentations. And I have to tell you, you guys did a great job keeping in contact with the membership, telling them what is going on. Everything from, you guys would have lunches like about financial planning, which is more kind of non-maritime, to something I didn't participate in, and I'm sure people are happy that I didn't, in your virtual yoga class. Although I did do the virtual turkey trot, I think at least once, maybe twice, but I certainly got involved and I did some of those. But you guys really tried to foster a way to keep the community up ahead of being able to do some in-person events, and I think that was, really important. Did you guys, how did your membership and, kind of stay? Did it stay pretty stable? Were you able to kind of keep it or increase it, or kind of how did you guys fare? We kind of, CMA kind of stayed, we lost some people, but then kind of stayed at a flat number. And then once we had some things that I recall went back up. How did you guys fare in all that, just out of curiosity?
We can talk about the Connecticut chapter, of course.
Yeah.
We did keep our membership pretty stable, and actually, this last year in 2022, we added about 10% of membership. So there's actually, again, we are adding new members. We are actually very active now on LinkedIn, so we keep posting information about what our other chapters are doing. So that's another thing that we want to encourage, communication between chapters, and just sharing news and events as well. So
you guys do a great job, and I see you're all over there, and your kind of communications, your email communications as well as social media communications are really top notch, and not just in the Connecticut chapter, but I see some stuff from, a lot of the overseas chapters, especially in Europe and even in South America. I think you guys are over in Africa. You guys are all over the place. And that's something that I want to talk a little bit about. This podcast is generally about the last dinosaur, maritime shipping in the digital age. And we really focus on this podcast a lot about digital tools. We talked about some of the great stuff that you're doing, as well as what's going on in the industry on the, on education and simulation and stuff like that. But let's pivot a little bit. I have talked in the past about social media and, and the ability, the capability of having organizations and individuals really bring maritime to a place out of the dark ages, out of the dinosaur ages. Talk a little bit about that, about really getting a younger generation, diverse generation into the industry, and kind of a little bit of a state of where we are today in your view, not only as a member of Kongsberg, but being in leadership at the WISTA level. And talk a little bit about that, because I think there's still a ton of room of improvement, and you guys, amongst other organizations, are really the pointy end of the spear of kind of moving that forward. Talk a little bit about that with me.
Sure, definitely. So as you know, WISTA is mainly women run, and women members as well. And of course, we believe women they're an important part in the maritime industry. And our goal and our role is to support those leaders and make sure we mentor other women coming into the industry. And I have to say, I have felt like this is a real family. I really, I can travel anywhere in the world, and I can see, let me see if I can reach out to the WISTA members there, and I can actually just meet them, even though maybe I don't know them, but I do have that connection. We are women in the maritime industry, and we have that connection, and we believe that we have the responsibility, and because we love what we're doing, is to mentor other women to join this industry and be able to support that. So that's what has really changed. And actually, of course, since COVID, a lot of things have changed as globally, and the opportunity to work from home and the work-life balance has also helped the maritime industry, especially to bring more women in the industry as well, because now it's something that they can do it from home. They don't have to go at sea, they don't have to go to an office. So that's very attractive for women that have a family, and it's harder for them to go to an office. And another thing too is that it makes them more attractive for working remotely for anybody. So you can actually attract candidates from around the world. So now we have the maritime industry that can find bright people, not only locally, but they can reach out to other countries, so the opportunities are possible anywhere. And I think one of the articles, I think you mentioned trade winds before. Our WISTA USA president, Christina, she had an article in the trade winds publication a month ago, maybe, and she was right. She said that we need to invest to attract the best and brightest, and showing the new generation that we are using the latest technology, and I think that's true. So
I 100% agree, and I think that it encompasses all the other ends of not just okay, cool tools, but then explaining it, and then also making the maritime space for those of us that are in it a place that you would make anybody feel comfortable, right? And I think that that's whenever you hear about maritime, generally it's bad, right?
yeah,
You hear about
accident.
the Ever Given going sideways in the Suez Canal. You
Mhm.
hear about the whatever number of ships that are stuck way out in Long Beach, and that's because you don't have that, and now you don't have toilet paper in some
It's
store.
always our fault, right?
It's always right. And then in a more serious note, then you hear about Cadet X and all of that sort of stuff. So I think organizations like yours, like WISTA, which I'm a proud, I say yours, you're a leadership of. I'm just that I'm a proud member of. It really it does a great job in trying to convey, and I think through social media platforms, I think what you guys are doing are fantastic. And there are other organizations to really get hey, this is a good space to be in. It's a safe space to be in. You can get mentorship, you have leadership, and I think it is right. And I think the other part that you bring out is the technology, right? And that is, we have cool technology, right? Remote learning, which is basically what you're trying to do. And I'm sure you're going to have an AI component. You talk about having a remote container ship, and I know you guys are involved in that, right? So how does AI fit in? I mean, there's some really cool things that kind of, it's maritime, but it goes beyond maritime, that I think we need to do a better job as an industry, especially the men and the people who've been in the industry. You need to do a better job of making it a welcome place. So I think what you guys are doing is certainly great there.
Well, thank you. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think, we think about maritime, we think about ships and transporting cargo. That's the only thing that we think of, but it's not. There is so much more to it. So
there is a ton to it. And I think, of course, the other big piece of this is having people want a career at sea. We talked a little bit about that earlier on the seafaring side of things. How do you make how do you make their lives easier, again, without overburdening, and then certainly, how do you make their things safer? We talked a little bit earlier about Cadet X. How do we make it a place where that doesn't happen, where that just is not even a blip on the radar? I think there's a lot of work there. I talked earlier with Holly Burkett of Tradewinds, and Sal Mercogliano, Professor Sal. We also talked about that as well. Like, we have to do a better job of getting rid of that and then promoting the industry that it is a good place. And certainly you guys have been using the tools there for that as well.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's a great and noble road of what you guys are doing, and certainly it was great to chat with you. I love to ask this question. Well, I have a question before I get to the end, and that is, we talk about, to kind of closing this out, going back or seeing somebody young in the industry, maybe a cadet member, maybe from one of the schools, maybe from a school that's studying maritime science, maybe not one of the maritime schools, but there's a lot of schools, University of Rhode Island, other places have these maritime studies classes. You see them at CMA next month in March. What would you say to them to encourage them to stay in the industry?
I will say it's an exciting time in the maritime industry. I think the sky is the limit. We don't know where this is headed, but I think, again, the unknown is the exciting part. You need to get on the train, and you can bring your own, you can bring your own dreams into it. You can develop new technologies. You can travel the world if you want to, but if you don't want to, you can do, also technology and apply technologies that will make the industry better. So either autonomous vessels, or, like, I know you had the e-machine people. I forgot.
Oh,
Yeah.
Seaman, yeah.
Yeah, you
I had
had the Sea Machine.
Arthur. Yeah, I had Arthur Seaman. I think he's moved on, but he was over at Sea Machine Robotics. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
one of my earlier episodes. Yeah, he was very good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I think again it's a very exciting time for the new generation, and again, us in Kongsberg Digital, we actually are hiring a lot of new generation, and it's so much fun. I feel really old when I go to Norway. I'm like, oh my God, there's so many young people in this
Yeah.
office. What's going on?
Well, yeah. Well, come on, you're much younger than I am, I'm sure. But I can tell you, I go to I work at Vesson, and I've been in their office, and we had a company function. I'm looking around, I'm like, wow. I'm the gray beard here. Holy smokes! And
Well,
I don't
we are the experts. We have to
we're
call
the
ourselves the experts.
Indeed, we have the experience. That's what I like to tell
So,
myself every day I wake up, Lourdes. And finally, a good question: are you reading anything fun? It doesn't have to be business. It could be a historical novel. What are you reading these days that are the kind of that you like?
so Chris, I'm a busy professional. I'm a busy mom. I'm a wife. I'm involved in WISTA. I don't have much time to
All
sit and
right.
relax, but I do enjoy music and I enjoy listening to audiobooks. So,
Oh,
so that's how I read audiobooks.
excellent, excellent. Is there anything that you've listened to
Yeah.
recently? And actually, my first guest on the podcast, who is a runs his own company, and young dad, all that stuff's like, Chris, I don't have time for this. I listen to audiobooks. What do you listen? Did you listen to anything good recently?
Well, I listen to all my gossip shows,
Oh,
but
that's fine. Yep.
but a good book that I just finished on the audiobook is called Leading Digital.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was so good. It was the authors are George Westerman, Dieter Bonnet, and Andrew McAfee.
Okay.
And so basically, the book is like a guide to help organizations on how to survive and how to thrive in this new digitally powered global economy. So it basically states where to invest your digital capabilities and how to lead your transformation. So it gives you a guide on how to, make your company, survive in these crazy times. So I learned a lot from reading it, and it actually gives you really good examples where digitalization impacted businesses that you don't think of, like Nike, Burberry, Starbucks, UPS. And then if you think about it, you have other companies like Kodak. They didn't
Right.
apply digitalization, and what happened to them?
They're out of business, right? Well, they're kind of back in business, sort of, but yeah, they're
Well, sort
basically out
of.
of business. Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and the key is success is toxic. You need to keep reinventing yourself. You need
You
kind of, yeah.
Yeah, you do. And it's funny, even on a personal level. I mean, I spent a long time on the commercial side of business, and now I'm kind of doing this. I'm on the digital side and kind of doing this thing as a creative outlet, and kind of a little bit reinventing over time. So it's not just applied for a company, but it's applied to individuals. Well,
Exactly.
Lourdes, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was fantastic. I loved hearing about you and your venture and kind of what you're doing at Kongsberg and how it's focusing on the seafarers, as well as the super important mission. I don't want to underplay that, but the super important mission of WISTA and really kind of giving leadership voices to women, as well as being nice to men. Which thank you for being. I'm a member. I got to pay that bill soon, so I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And then I have to say one more thing. So for your audience, if anybody wants to become a WISTA member, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to help you with that. And also, I had a question for you. What animal do you think we are going to be in 10 years? Are we going to be still a dinosaur, or are we going to be called the first something? What is it going to be? The first one animal?
So I guess birds evolved from dinosaurs. So maybe the first,
An eagle?
the first eagle. Okay. Well, there's a lot of red-tailed hawks around here. You and I live in Connecticut. There's a lot. So maybe the first hawk. I don't know, but that's a great question. I do think in 10 years, maybe my podcast will be obsolete and I'll have to do something else if I'm still doing podcasting or even still alive, but we hope. But I think it's maybe the first bird or the first hawk. I like the hawks because we have a lot of them
Baby
around
chick.
here.
It will be a baby chick.
Maybe the first egg. How about that? How about no one's ever asked me that. I do appreciate it. That's fantastic. So thank you again for coming on, Lourdes. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity, Chris.